We're going to sew with fabric today. The first thing you're going to do is turn the on-off button to on by flipping the switch. The switch is below the hand wheel. The hand wheel is right there. And then right below that on the right side is your power switch. You're going to flip that to on. This is the cord that plugs into the outlet. This is the cord that is plugged into the foot control. Now the foot control is the gas pedal of the sewing machine. This, I would suggest using this foot control because you have more control over your sewing machine. Now, once you get to you've turned your machine on and everything's plugged in, the light's on and everything, you are going to go to, it will point directly and you can see when you turn it on, it goes directly to 0.1. Now when it does that, you will need to, right now it's on the number sign, which really is nothing. Then below that is zigzag, and then the straight stitch. You need to hit, this is the mode selection button. You're going to click the mode selection button until the light hits the straight stitch. Now it goes to automatically 2.2. That stitch is actually too small to sew. If you made a mistake, you would have a really hard time getting your stitches out. So I recommend going to 3.0. Now to do that, you're going to hit the plus sign. You just click it until you hit 3.0. 3.0, straight stitch, and you're all set to go. If it isn't on 3.0 and you make a mistake, you will have a really hard time getting your stitches out, especially if your fabric is a thicker fabric. So again, I really recommend that you put it on 3.0. Now you're all set to get ready to sew. We just have to get the bobbin and the threads all in order here. So we're going to take it down to the presser foot and get that all set up here. Now you can see the presser foot and the bobbin. Now the bobbin has to be in place. We've already hooked the bobbin. We've already threaded the top part of the machine. Right now the threads are just right here. We want to take the threads, and in between the presser foot there's an opening. We're going to take the threads and slide them right in between the opening of the presser foot. The next step, you can't just sew like this. You have to have your hook cover plate on, or your slide plate, which I always call it. But it is called the hook cover plate on this machine. You need to hook it in place. There's a hook right in here, and then you need to snap it down. And remember, your hook release button is here. It needs to be down when you're sewing. When you are working with your machine, you have a presser foot lifter, which is located in the back of the machine, right there. Now, right now, the presser foot lifter is in the up position because the presser foot right now is up. The presser foot will eventually need to be down when you're sewing. So we're going to take our 2 pieces of fabric. You may notice that there are lines going straight up and down. This line is a 5/8 seam allowance, and you can actually see it on the hook cover plate that it says 5/8 of an inch. If you go to a fabric store and it says to use a 5/8 inch seam allowance, which is a regulation seam allowance, it will tell you to follow that line. If you don't follow that line and you either go way over here or way in between, if you go to the edge of your presser foot, you're going to make it bigger than it's supposed to be. If you sew out here, it's going to be smaller than it's supposed to be. So it's supposed to be, if it says to follow the 5/8 line, you follow the 5/8 line. If it says to follow the 1/4 line, which we will be doing eventually at one point, that is the edge of your presser foot. And when we make the pockets to your locker organizer, we will be using the edge of your presser foot, which I will be going over later. So you're going to take your 2 pieces of fabric and you're going to line it right up with the red line. Now you may also notice there's a line going across here. This line is to pivot, and pivot is turning a corner. So when you begin sewing, you must have your presser foot down. If you don't have your presser foot down, the machine will jam. And I'm not really sure what this machine will do because it's a brand new machine, so I don't want to jam it up when I first get started. So I'm going to place my hand underneath here, get the presser foot lifter, and set the presser foot down. Now it is spring loaded, so I shouldn't hear it slam when you can gently set it down. The first thing you're going to do is, you've got it all set, you've got your fabric, the fabric is underneath the presser foot, and now the presser foot is right against those feed dogs, and that's what helps pull the fabric underneath your presser foot. You are now going to go 3 steps forward and then 3 steps back to reverse. Now 3 steps forward, we're going to step down on the foot control and go forward 3 stitches. And you want to keep your hands, your left hand on this side and your right hand in front so that you have your fingers away from the needle. So we have one here and one here, keeping your fabric on that red line. You're going to go forward 3 steps and stop. Now we need to reverse. So to reverse, we're going to hold down on the reverse button. By the way, the buttons, we have the on-off, the up-down needle. We also have, this is for making a buttonhole. You have to have the buttonhole attachment on to be able to use that. So right now, if you pressed it, it wouldn't do anything. This button is the reverse, and this is the start-stop button. That's if you don't have the foot control plugged in. And if I push it, it's not going to do anything because the foot control is plugged in. So I'm going to hold down. You have to hold it in when you reverse, and then you take your finger off when you're done. So I am going to reverse. I'm not sure if I can show you both. So I'm going to push the reverse button in and put my push down on my foot control. I'm going to go 3 steps back. And then it did an extra one just because, I guess. because it's electronic. And then we're going to go forward until the edge of your fabric reaches your pivoting line. So you're going to keep your hands, like I said, you want to keep them away from the needle, not too close, but back a ways. And you're going to go forward. And you're going to take it slow. You want to keep that edge of your fabric right on the red line on your machine. Now I'm getting close to this line, which is the pivoting line. And when I get close to that line, I'm going to stop. Okay, so I can go one more. I'm going to push on the up-down needle so that I can make it go very slow. So I'm going to hit it. Okay, so I am right on the red line. And when you pivot, the needle has to be down in the fabric. It cannot be up, because if you turn and the needle is up, you're going to have a gap in your corner. So now you're going to lift on your presser foot lifter. See, the presser foot is up. Now see how it's connected underneath there? I can't pull it out, but I'm going to slide it so it reaches this red line again. I'm going to set the presser foot down. If you start sewing with the presser foot up, it will probably jam your machine, but I'll check that in a few minutes after I'm done. And you're going to do the exact same thing when you get to the other side of your fabric. When you get close to that pivoting line, and you should take it slow, it's not a race. The faster you go, the less control you have over your machine, and that's how accidents happen. Okay, so again, the needle has to be down, and I am pretty close. If I do one more stitch, I will probably be over the red line. So I'm going to lift, turn, put the presser foot back down. Now I'm going to go to the next. And again, I'm going very slow so that I'm doing a good job as I am doing my stitches. If you are running the machine fast, that means that you have no control and you are going to make a big mess of your project. Okay, I'm getting close to the pivoting line. I am going to go up, back down, which takes me right at the red line. The needle is down, lift, turn, put your presser foot back down. Now you notice I am not reversing at the corners. There is no need to reverse because I haven't started and stopped like where I need to cut the thread. If I cut the thread is when you need to reverse. Now you're going to go to the next side or actually finish up your stitch. And you're going to keep it right on that red line. Keep your fingers away from the needle. Alright, we're almost to the very end. Okay, so now we need to go 3 steps backwards, hold the reverse, go 3 steps, and then you're going to sew forward again. Now I'm going to hit that up-down needle because see how the needle is down? I can't lift the presser foot and pull anything out because the needle is down. So let me see if this will work with the presser foot being up. Oh, it did. Now you're going to take your threads and you're going to gently pull them out of the machine. Now you have a thread cutter. So I'm going to turn the machine. Right here is the thread cutter. What you're going to do is you're going to take your thread and you have it right here. You're going to gently just start from the back, slide it to the front, back to front, like this. So you want to just go right behind the thread cutter, and it will automatically cut your thread for you. And then you'll just take your threads and slide them to the back of the machine, maybe even pull a little tail. After you have completed the 5/8 seam allowance, then you're going to practice the 1/4 seam allowance. And to do that, you are going to line up the edge of your fabric with the edge of your presser foot, and that will give you 1/4 of an inch. So you're going to take your fabric and line it right up, and don't forget to set your presser foot down. So you're going to now go 3 steps forward, and then hit the reverse, go back 3 steps, and then go straight and follow the edge of your presser foot with the edge of your fabric. And when we're doing this, this is going to help you to practice when you are working on your pockets, because making your pockets you will need to use the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now I'm getting close to the edge of my fabric, so I'm going to stop, and I need to reverse. Hold down on the reverse button, go back 3 steps, stop, go forward, and then you're going to make sure your needle is up, and we're just going to sew one side as a practice because we're not pivoting when we're using the 1/4 inch. And then you'll use the thread cutter again, and you just take it and then just cut your your thread just like that. The one thing that I forgot to mention when you were practicing the 5/8 inch seam allowance is that you need to, again, make sure that you line up the edge of your fabric with the red line and set the presser foot down. Now when you're sewing, I'm going to step down on the foot control, reverse, and then go forward again, and you're going to be sewing until the edge of your fabric reaches your pivot line, like I mentioned previously. Now the reason why I'm going to show you what not to do. Now when you get close to your pivoting point, actually this is something that I forgot to show you, but you're going to take, see, I'm not quite at my pivoting point yet, so you can actually hit the up down button until your fabric reaches the pivot spot. So what you're going to do is, if you're afraid that you're going to sew past it, you can just take the up down needle and just move that until you reach the 5/8 or the pivoting point, so that you don't sew beyond it. So right now my my fabric is right at the pivot point and the needle is down. So I'm going to lift, turn, and this is what happens to a lot of you. You turn and you forget to put your presser foot down. Now this is what it's going to look like when you don't have your presser foot down. So I'm going to start sewing, and do you see how it's just jumping all over? That means you need to stop and put your presser foot down. Now you may even want to reverse and get it back on track, because those stitches are going to be messed up. So I would reverse back, make sure your needle's up, and then I would just go back over to the red line because I'm way off, and you see that mess of thread there. This is a jam-free machine, which I had no idea, so it's not going to jam up, but it will make a mess of sewing. So something is wrong. You need to go back, and then you can kind of just fix it yourself, but then you'll have to take out your stitches because it's going to be a mess. So then after you get all the way around, again, make sure when you pivot the needle is down, and if you feel like you need to slow it down because you're not sure, maybe you're going to go forward too much. And I'm going to show you what it's going to do if you don't have your foot control plugged in. I'm going to step down, or I'm going to hit the stop button here. See how it just runs? And then I need to put my needle down, and now I'm actually beyond the pivot point. So I am going to turn, and you see how I'm off. I can get back on track by putting the bottom edge right at the 5/8 line. Don't forget to put your presser foot down, and you can get back on track very easily. But remember, I don't have my foot control in, so I'm going to do this with the start-stop button. Again, it is sewing the same exact way. I'm going very slow. You see I'm getting back on the 5/8 seam allowance even though I started off crooked. So you can kind of fix it. So now I'm getting close. I'm going to stop. I'm going to use that up-down needle until I get to the pivot line. It's down, turn, put your presser foot back down, don't forget, and then I'm going to stop it. It works fine. It's your preference. If you want to use the foot control, you just have to unplug it and set it behind your machine so that it's out of your way. And then I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to actually I'm going to go forward a little bit, stop, reverse, and then go forward. I am so used to hitting the foot control that it just seems a little odd for me to use the start-stop button. Make sure your needle up button is up, and then cut your threads. Now, once you have done your practice sample, you are going to bring the fabric up to me so that I can check it. I want to make sure that you've pivoted at the corners, that you don't have gaps at the corners, because if there is a gap there, I can tell that your needle was not down when you were pivoting. Now you can see that my top thread was pink and my bobbin thread was blue. Now it's always good when you're practicing how to sew that you use two different colors of thread, especially when you're practicing how to thread your machine, because then you can see the difference between the two. But again, when you're sewing your project, it's good to have the same color thread and bobbin. Now, once you had me check your fabric, what you're going to do is you're going to get a seam ripper. And remember, the seam ripper, the blade of the seam ripper is in right where that curve is. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the pointed edge of the seam ripper. You're going to slide it right under the stitch, and don't pull, just slide it straight. Don't pull it this way. If you pull it this way, you'll break the point, and then the seam ripper will be useless, and it will be one less seam ripper that everyone can use. So you're going to take, again, just slide it straight up and it will cut. And if you do this about every 5 to 6 stitches, and then what you're going to do after you do that, about 5 or 6 times, you're going to take your fabric and you're going to gently take your fabric and gently pull them apart. Now, I wouldn't recommend trying to rip these apart because you're going to rip your fabric, and if you rip your fabric, you're not going to have fabric to do your practice pocket. And we need this fabric for your practice pocket. We're not making anything with it. We're not making a pillow or anything like that. We are just practicing. This fabric is just for practicing. When you're done with this fabric, you need to put it in your tray. Don't leave it out because I don't know who it belongs to, and then you won't know where your fabric is. So you will need to keep it in your tray because you need to practice threading and you need to practice seam ripping and sewing so that you get better at it. I'm not giving you a new piece of fabric every time you stitch around it. So you do need to carefully seam rip your stitches when you are finished. And then just gently pull them apart, and then you can re-sew it again.